Oh, wait, there's Glenn at the bottom. I can see him too.
That's important.
Well, let me see
We've
if I
got quite a
can,
few of us already this morning.
let me see if I can expand my screen here somehow. No, wait, come on. Oh, wait, I should do this. And then this. Okay, well, that works, kind of.
Anthony, do you know how many more we are waiting for that are to join us today?
I can see him counting right now.
Yeah.
Hi, Thomas. Chuck.
Morning,
Good morning, Ray. How are you?
Hi, Joyce. And Susan.
Hi, Ray.
And hi, Petra. I see you up there. We'll be introducing Petra later. She's from the Santa Barbara Foundation.
Great.
And I see Paul is online, but he's not visual. And Cesar Valadares, who is the new EDD Deputy Division Chief, just kind of waved at everybody on chat. I'll be mentioning him as part of my director's report. And Cesar, tell me if I pronounce your last name correctly, because I'm terrible with pronunciation, so we'll see.
Okay. Anthony, do we have most of our participants? And if so, I'll do our notice to the public.
Yesenia just joined us. Hi. He's still counting.
Yep. That's fine. Don't want to miss anybody.
I know. And I do know that Steve Lavanino and Daniel Nielsen are not going to be able to make it because there's apparently some county officials are having some sort of training that they had to attend. Not sure what
Okay.
the training was.
Okay.
But it also is reflective that I'm not high enough in the county pecking order that I had to go, so.
Then it must not be important, Ray.
Yeah,
right?
that's the way I'd like to look at it.
I think they thought you already knew whatever it was.
Yes.
Right, you already know.
I would agree with that.
Well, you know what? Why don't, since it's 4 minutes into the meeting time, why don't we just get started anyway? And as you may or may not have noticed, there's no action items anyway to do except for the minutes. So in respect for everybody's time, I know that a couple of people need to leave earlier than our time that we've allotted. We've allotted to 12:30, and I know that one person has to leave at 11:30ish. So let's start.
Okay.
Why don't we just start?
Okay, then I will start with our notice to the public. Good morning. My name is Sandra Dickerson, and in my capacity as chair of the Santa Barbara Workforce Development Board, I would like to welcome you to the virtual board meeting of January 22nd, 2021. As a reminder, I'd like to state that the Workforce Development Board is dedicated to supporting our community by providing a first-class workforce system for job seekers and employers alike. We have responsibility for oversight of public dollars, development of effective and efficient programs, and in partnership with the County of Santa Barbara Board of Supervisors, we assist viable businesses and industries industry sectors that provide self-sufficient wages to our residents. Procedurally, our meeting will be conducted as follows. Members of the public who wish to address the board should use the raise hand button in the Zoom chat box. WDB staff will then enable the talk feature for the attendee wishing to make a comment. The procedure for this meeting includes the reading of these opening remarks and continues as follows. WDB support staff will take roll. Members of the public wishing to make a comment will then be given 3 minutes each to comment. WDB staff and/or board members may present recommendations for an item on the agenda. Board members may ask questions of WDB staff and other board members. The board may take action on an agenda item. The agenda was posted at www.sbcwdb.org for your convenience, and WDB board members may only discuss items listed on the agenda pursuant to the Brown Act. Okay, so with that, Anthony will take roll.
You're on mute. Okay.
And we can't hear you, Anthony, if you're doing roll.
Well, why don't I do it instead? I'll start from the top. Sandra Dickerson,
Here.
Diane Owens,
Here.
Yesenia DeCasas,
Here.
Adrian Dodd, Joyce Donaldson,
Here.
Chuck Huddleston,
Here.
Thomas Formica,
Here.
Steve Lavanino, Susan Mathers,
Here.
Glenn Morris, Daniel Nielsen, Cara Williams. Okay, so I'm not sure what that means. We do have a quorum. Anthony is signaling with the thumbs up. So with all this high technology, we're going back to hand signs, which I love.
Whatever works.
It is. It's like sign language. So, out of respect for Susan and, and the Department of
I'll take
Rehab.
it.
So we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Ray.
Mhm.
Thanks, Anthony, for trying that. There's always these logistical issues or technical issues, I know. Any reorganization to the agenda?
Not for me.
Okay. Anthony, do we have any public comment? No? Okay.
No, that was a thumbs down.
Yeah. So board communications, this is our section for any board members. If you have information to share, particularly, I think what might be helpful now is many of you may have some perspectives on, again, what is happening, as a result of COVID that would be helpful for Ray and the staff as they, continue kind of pivoting as they have done so well in terms of additional grants and things that they've gotten to specifically help people affected by COVID. So I'd be kind of interested if anyone has any insight on what they're seeing happening in the business community to employees, how some of these different industry sectors are being affected. You can just raise your hand or unmute if you have anything you'd like to bring up.
Can I put somebody on the spot? Joyce, can I put you on the spot? I mean, you are with the chamber, and then I'm going to ask Glenn for the Northern Chamber just to see, because you guys have connection with a lot of business folks that we have some connection with, but you're probably hearing more than we are. So Joyce, anything you want to say, and no matter how long or how short.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ray. Thank you. We did have our annual meeting last night in which we released our roadmap to recovery and our 5-step method. I know Glenn is a instrumental part in that as well. We are compiling a list of all the closed businesses within our South Coast region. I recall that somebody from the city of Santa Barbara had sent out a report this week saying that there were 400 empty storefronts in Santa Barbara.
Ooh.
I know. And he took a lot of pictures as well. I plan on going and doing a walk in Carpinteria next week. We have had some, and so we have compiled a list. So if that list is of interest to you, we're happy to forward that. It's a work in progress. One of the things I wanted to look at though, yesterday we got a memo, in case you don't know, that Beachside Bar Cafe closed. And I know everybody is extremely distressed about that.
Is that the one with the, right on the beach with the parachute top, sort of?
I have never been there, so I couldn't confirm that. Maybe somebody else does. But it's really sad. I know a lot of our staff were just really super upset. There's a lot of employees involved, etc. So,
and Janine closed her downtown restaurant also, the one that's right in downtown, but the one in Upper State Street and one in Montecito is still open. I think the one in Goleta is also open.
Oh, I did miss that one. So I do know that we have a clothing store that recently closed here that's in a longstanding Carpinteria store. So, downtown Carpinteria is looking, it looks okay, but we do have more vacancies than usual. So with our roadmap to recovery, maybe Glenn, you maybe even want to expand on that. I know we've been working hand in hand with you, and maybe talk a little bit about the political action that we're taking.
Well, good morning, everybody. The campaign that Joyce is referring to is a effort on the part of the chambers across the county to, maybe step up a little bit of the tone of our messaging and really trying to share the perspective that I think there's been this narrative that we've all bought into that in order to keep people healthy, we must curtail business operations. And yet I don't know that there's been data shared that really connects those dots. Perhaps it does, but perhaps it's that data exists, but it's not being shared. What data we do have access to seems to indicate that the spread of the COVID virus is not a work-based phenomenon, that it's related to people's private behavior in their private settings. And so we believe, and I think our messaging is evolving to say, we can do both. We can continue to promote healthy behaviors. We can take the steps necessary in the community to keep people healthy, and we can operate our businesses safely. That doesn't mean we operate without any changes in the way we've done things in the past, but we believe businesses have and can successfully make modifications to their operation that allow them to operate in a safe manner. And frankly, if we look at the broader definition of well-being of individuals in the community, we think access to a job and an income is essential to that well-being. So that's the kind of the messaging behind it. It has both a kind of a public campaign element. You've probably unfortunately seen us on TV a few times too many, but that's out there. And then there is a political piece. We're working with our city councils and hopefully the Board of Supervisors to get them on record as supporting that kind of position. In terms of the impacts on business and maybe specifically for this group on employment, I think it's important to recognize that it is a very disparate impact. there is not a single COVID impact. Depending on your industry and depending on how the businesses respond, it could be, as diverse as, they're losing the business and closing and letting everybody go on one end of the spectrum, to businesses that are in needing to hire at even higher rates than they were in the past, and are actively out there in the marketplace trying to add people because their business has grown significantly. And that, really hits a lot of different industries in our communities. Hospitality, restaurants, hotels, personal care services, the barbers and beauty salons, and the gyms and tattoo parlors, and all of those kinds of things are definitely struggling, right? They are feeling significant impacts from the restrictions on their business. On the other hand, professional services, are continuing along. Agriculture continues to, put seed in the ground and pull plants out, at the other end of the cycle. Healthcare is in massive growth mode right now. I was on a call this morning with the CEO of our hospital here, and she said they are actively trying to find not just nurses and respiratory therapists that you would expect, but they're actively hiring physicians, surgeons, just to try to continue to address, healthcare needs in the community, and really to begin to fill the gaps that require people to leave our community for certain services, right? So there's a real effort, I think, across the county to address some of those kinds of issues. And then finally, I would just point to retail. I think there's this perception that many of our retailers are struggling. And while that is the case, I think for some of our smaller, very traditional retailers who don't have a way to engage with their customers other than opening the door and hoping somebody shows up. For many of our retailers, they're doing quite well because in part, many of the folks in our community that would normally have disposable income are still employed. Folks like me, right? Folks like most of you, professional employees are still pulling paychecks. And in many of the places where we would normally spend some of those dollars, family vacations, whatever, we're not. And so there's disposable income that is available. And I think part of the therapy that we all engage in is to shop, right? And to spend some money. And so many of your retail categories are doing quite well. So I think that's one of the nuances that is really important, as we talk about really understanding the impacts, is to recognize that it is not a single impact, and that it varies widely depending on the industry and the ability of the business to kind of adjust their operations and respond and engage with customers in different ways.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'm going to touch on some of those things that Glenn and Joyce talked about during my director's report, but that's good.
Okay. Any other comments?
Sandra, I could just give a brief report out from Hancock. So
Sure.
Just more community information. We continue to provide the food share distribution every Tuesday and Thursday to the community, and then on Wednesdays for our students. I think to date, we're close to 300,000 persons we've served, and over close to 60,000 cars have come through our parking lots.
Wow.
So yeah, so a lot of work there. In fact, we even had the Rotary Club came last week with Dr. Walters to help support quite a bit of the packaging of food and distribution. So we thank them for their volunteerism. Also, we began doing the vaccine distribution last week, and it's Wednesdays and Fridays. We're working with Santa Barbara County Department of Health. And so we've provided the facilities, staffing, and some other resources too. So I know in the weeks to come, they'll be ramping up the amount of vaccines that are given out daily. And as far as for in the fall, we're still no official word yet as far as whether we're remote or face-to-face. I know the hope is that we'll be face-to-face. And for right now, we do have some of our primary CTE programs, law enforcement, nursing, dental. They're still face-to-face, so that we're trying to get these students through our program so we can get them into the workforce. Thanks.
Okay.
Great. Great.
You know, I want to just reiterate what Glenn said, because it's exactly what I do, my team every single day is dealing with COVID, and we have forever. And of course, it's just been an explosion through December, and now, of course, escalating numbers in January. We have lots and lots of positive cases we're dealing with virtually daily now, and almost none of them are workplace exposures. They are absolutely coming from employees who traveled over the holidays, who got together in family gatherings, and someone there was positive with COVID. And so we're just not seeing a workplace issue at all. And across my clients, exactly as Glenn said, the ones who have laid off and have continued to lay off, and some I think may not open, are exactly in those same industries. A winery, for example. We just did another round of laying off all of those employees because they're shut down again. So hopefully the vaccine program will start getting really rolled out in a much more effective way, and we can get these businesses back and reopen, because I'm very concerned that so many of them are not going to survive this last shutdown. So
through the chair, this is Chuck
Mhm.
Huddleston.
Yeah.
For us, for my group, we're considered essential, so our electricians are still working and have been. So I think you're absolutely right about most of the infections. We've had a few, and of course, not everybody's reporting to me what they're getting all the time.
Right.
So fortunately, right at the beginning, our international office and the employers, our international office employers, made a deal together to protect everybody. If they felt like they were sick, they could go home. And so it really kind of helped, because right at the beginning, they would grant them unemployment if they needed to go home, and it kept the infections down, I think, and not go through the group. So, and I think you're absolutely right. I think it looks like the longer you're around somebody with it, and you're not out in the open, if you're in a closed place, it's like duration has a lot to do with it. Like, I think at work, we're moving around and we're doing our job, and we're not just standing by each other,
Right.
chatting all the time. And so I think if you do a few of the simple things, and the N95 masks are pretty readily available now. I see they're saying, if you can get N95s, get N95s even for the workers instead of the other cloth masks and things they're using. So I think if we take the right precautions, we can save some lives. I've known my wife's had a cousin pass away. We've had some other relatives pass away. I know we have our training director from Orange County that just retired. Well, he's on a ventilator down in Orange County now. And so several months ago, nobody knew anybody that had it. Now I know a whole bunch of people had it. I know some people that passed away from it. And that you actually know that it hits a lot harder when you know people that are dying from it. It's a different thing. So I think we just still need to I just worry about letting our guard down. I think everybody just got to be diligent and keep their guard up.
I would agree. Okay.
Wear a mask.
And I'll just read a comment from Caesar that they did receive a warn notice this morning about 200 employees impacted from LSL properties. So a warn notice, as some of you may know, is required notice in a mass layoff kind of situation. And you're required to give notice, and there's requirements of how long that notice needs to be and stuff if you're going to do a large layoff. So 250 employees from LSL Properties is pretty significant. So Ray, that may be someone that we need to reach out to and see if there are some services we might be able to provide some of those
Yes.
soon to be laid off employees.
We received the warn notices too, and we do have a requirement to go out and to provide certain services to the workers as well as to the company. And because of COVID, of course, we're doing it virtually, but that's proven to be okay. And and has worked out pretty much. So we are going to follow up on this one. I haven't seen the warrant notice that Cesar has made us aware of just now, but I'm sure we will get it and we will follow up on it.
Great, thank you. Okay. I don't have a separate chair report. Ray, do you have a director's report?
Yeah, I just want to say a couple of things. I want to say Happy New Year's to everybody, first of all. I mean, we haven't seen each other since last October. So, first of all, I do want to say Happy New Year's to you. I think Anthony is going to put up some bullet points that I have for my director's report. And that way you can kind of follow the bouncing ball or whatever you want to call it. But there's a few things, and starting off with something really positive, which is that, Diane is aware of it, particularly because Diane has always been involved with our youth programs, but the State Workforce Association does something called the Dwight Bridey Scholarships. And that's for people in the youth programs from all over the state. They compete to be selected. And what California Workforce Association does is that they work with certain vendors. I know Monster.com used to be one that would donate money for the scholarship fund. And outstanding young people from across the state, depending upon how much money and what the applications are that are received, people are selected. It's in recognition of young people who have overcome tremendous challenges and to achieve some goals, but while being enrolled in our workforce development programs. So I had been for a number of years the chair of the conference committee for CWA, and every year I had to give out the Dwight Bridey Scholarship, never to anybody from Santa Barbara. And so finally, this year, we have a participant, Teresa Rodriguez, who was actually selected and received the scholarship at a luncheon yesterday. I know Diane had an opportunity to participate by watching it. We actually have a clip of her speaking about her challenges and thanking CWA for the scholarship. But the audio is awful, and that's not her fault, it's CWA's fault. So what we're trying to do is to find software that does the translation so that you can read it. And once we have that, we're going to put it on our website. And we're also going to have a little article in our next newsletter about Teresa's accomplishments. And we're very, very proud of her. We're very, very proud of Goodwill Industries for supporting her. The supervisor of the program actually had to also write a recommendation on behalf of the participant. The participant had to write an essay about what they were overcoming. And, as I said, I used to give out those awards for a number of years, probably 8 years in a row. And whenever we did those luncheons in person, there was rarely a dry eye in the room. The things that these young people will do just to succeed is just amazing. We're talking about kids who living in cars, kids whose parents have abandoned them, all sorts of things like that. But yet they succeed in our programs, and they move forward, and they just want the chance to contribute and to make a success of their lives. It's, I can't go any further because I'll start, tearing up here right now. thinking about it. Some of you know that I came out of youth programs. That was my first program in workforce, was youth programs. And so it's always been really, really close to my heart. So I'm going to stop talking. I don't know if Diane has something that she wants to add about the event. And I know Diane was also very, very pleased that we finally, she's tired of hearing me talk about it, probably.
Finally. Well, the only thing that I will add, Ray, is thank you for talking about this wonderful luncheon that we had. We got no food exactly at this luncheon, of course, it was virtual, but I think there probably wasn't a dry eye in the whole Zoom audience. Or it was really, really touching to hear these 4 winners talk about their lives and what they've overcome. It just reminds you how many people have struggle to climb the hill, right? To get up to what they want to do. So it's inspiring. And I think, Ray, we ought to call the whole youth committee together again just to say hi, because we haven't met for a long time.
All right.
Yeah, and it just reminds me that we do a lot of good work, and it's too bad we don't have millions and millions of dollars to help millions and millions more. So thank you.
Well, I know that we are scheduling another youth committee meeting. I guess that's a kind of a nice segue into, again, this is the beginning of a new year. So we're starting to assess things, and I'll be talking about that in the first agenda item also. But we're looking at some of the things at the state level that's going on, and there's lots of changes happening there. So it's sort of like a door closing and a door opening at the same time. So there's some state workforce things that are going. Just a tremendous amount of retirements are going on in Sacramento, and changes. We work very, very closely, obviously, with the Employment Development Department. And they have a new director, a woman named Rita Sines, I believe is the way her last name is pronounced. She used to be the director of the State Department of Social Services a number of years ago, and she's coming back. And I think she's coming back as a stabilizing force. I think that we're all aware, and I know Cesar is on the call, so I'm sensitive to all of that. But we know that EDD has had some issues, public issues with the unemployment insurance checks and the unemployment insurance system. And we believe that Rita will help stabilize and work the department through that problem. At the same time, there's been a high level resignation out of the labor agency, a fellow named Stuart Knox, who used to be a workforce director at one time, but now he's gone to the state, and he was the number 2 in the labor agency, and he's left to go take a job with the community college in the Sacramento area. But Stuart was sort of the mover and the shaker, and he's one of those guys who got things going. So he will be missed, and so I say that there's been a number of changes. And obviously locally, we suffered the loss of Mary Navarro Aldana, who passed away very suddenly and unexpectedly in late December. I know that Cesar and Jesse are looking to make a permanent replacement in that area. Pat Dupree is currently the acting for EDD over this particular area. So again, a lot of changes going on at the state level. And so I wanted to mention that. Anthony, if you could put up the flyer right now, just so that they can see that as I'm speaking to it. But this past Wednesday, we had our virtual employer event. Glenn was talking about some employers are ramping up and doing hiring. And so one employer that's doing that is a company called HCI, I believe it is. This is the virtual career fair that we had for them. And as you can see, they actually provide services to large scale telecommunication providers. And that's one of those areas that's taking off. But you look at the type of openings that they had admin support, asphalt foreman and Class A driver, I guess, asphalt laborer, construction supervisor, labor A driver, lineman driver, foreman and project manager. So those are the type of things that they were looking for. You can go back to the original slide, Anthony. So we've been helping with that sort of thing. So with as many companies and stores that we see closing and what Joyce was talking about with the closures that were happening in downtown Santa Barbara, at the same time, there are employers who are looking to hire. We're trying to help them with that. Glenn's also passed on a referral of a company, a small company out at Santa Maria Airport that we followed up on and are working with them on some of their hiring needs. So that hiring need thing is starting to happen, but at the same time, we're really starting to assess and take stock of where we've been and where we should be going. And I'll talk about that, as I said, in the first agenda item. But the other thing I want to touch upon very quickly is we do have a new federal administration. Everybody knows that, just happened Wednesday. The president has announced that he's going to be putting forward, actually we have the name wrong there because it was just mentioned once or twice and I didn't get the name right. So that's my error. It's not American Recovery Act, it's American Rescue Act. So that's what President Biden is going to be putting forward, and it's probably going to be something like ARA, which was the Economic Recovery Act that we had in 2008, 2009. But one of the things that we should keep our eye out for is that the president is trying to connect the immediate workforce needs, i.e. temporary jobs, basically, with the response to COVID. It's been mentioned already that that the requirement or the goal is to increase the number of vaccinations. But at the same time, there's a huge demand for transmission tracing. And so those are types of things that workforce boards can be asked to assist the local government in doing. I know that the county has on its website constantly a recruitment for folks to contact trace. That's one of those things that I've been talking with the county executive office about. Well, work with us on that. You know, there's some things that we can do in helping you find those folks and maybe even help with longer term training. I know that at the state level, the state workforce board is also looking at trying to persuade at the state level and from that to the local level, a connection between the workforce system and a lot of the COVID responses. So that's something that could be coming up for us in the future with this American Rescue Act. But it's also very likely that our primary funding source, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, will receive additional types of special funding for to boost the economy and get the economy going again. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future, but I think it's a safe bet to believe that there's going to be some dramatic changes and some infusion of activities in the workforce arena, which I'll keep everybody aware of. The last thing that I want to go back and mention here is Governor Newsom did announce his budget, I guess January he has to announce a budget, and then there's a May revise, which is kind of like the real budget. But at any rate, in January, he announced a budget, and some of you may have heard that he had indicated that there was 250 million or so for workforce. That's not for the workforce system that we oversee and have responsibility for. It's actually talking about what goes to Thomas and the folks at the community colleges and the Strong Workforce Initiative. The idea, of course, is that the workforce board, the workforce system can work alongside and align ourselves with the Strong Workforce Initiative. But I didn't want anyone to have the impression that that was a huge infusion of state dollars coming to the workforce boards. It's not. There will be some, as I mentioned before, probably some additional money coming to us, but not under that pronouncement that the governor made last week. Last thing I want to mention is that we are in the recruitment process for additional workforce board members. I do have some prospects. Obviously, we're going to be moving Cesar's application forward to replace Jesse, who got promoted, and he'll take the EDD slot. Our presenter at today's meeting is filling out an application to join us, and that would be Petra Gomez out of the Santa Barbara Foundation. And so we're looking at that. I also have a couple of private sector folks that I've been talking to, and I won't mention the names of the companies, but they're huge companies. One very big in Joyce's area, so she'll probably know what company that is. We are looking to increase our membership as we move forward. So that's the end of a very long director's report. But again, this was the first meeting of the year. I did want to kind of catch everybody up, and we'll be talking about some other things as we go forward, such as the COVID impact report, and of course, the program updates and the timelines. Oh, I did want, Anthony, if you could put up the meeting schedule. That one last thing I did want to put up there. As everyone knows, we have topics for our meetings. That's why we have the 4 meetings a year. The idea, again, was that we wouldn't just meet to meet. We would meet where we had work that the entire board needed to be involved in. Otherwise, it would be handled by committees or by the executive committee. So I did want to remind for our remainder meetings of 2021 is our March meeting. We're going to be approving local and regional workforce plans, which I'll talk about at the very end of today's agenda. In the July meeting, we're going to have our annual program operators report, where it's at the end of our program year, and they'll be reporting out their successes. And I see how positive I am about that successes, all of their successes, even in COVID period. And then our October meeting is our annual budget meeting, where we approve our budget. And I put a couple of footnotes there to remind folks that the executive committee meets on those months where the full board does not meet, and they make decisions, they review things for us. I send things out to them as well as the full board as much as possible to keep everybody up and involved. And last but not least, we do have 3 committees: the executive committee, the youth committee, and the performance committee. And those meetings are posted on our website. And all WD members are certainly invited to attend those meetings, and as is the public. So there are, if you have the time for additional meetings, you can attend those. One of our thinkings behind just having the 4 meetings per year was that we wanted the high-level folks to sit on the board, and we know how difficult time is for them. So we figured if we could make the promise only 4 meetings per year, that they would be more willing to come and attend and participate. And so that's the end of the report.
Okay, thanks, Ray. I'm going to let you, Ray, if you don't mind, move through the next agenda item. I've got, the things of working at home. I suddenly have loud noise going on outside my window, so I'm going to stay on mute and let Ray kind of move through as my gardeners are right under my window. Sorry, guys.
Well, that's interesting that you should say that. For the longest time, my window faces the parking lot here in Santa Barbara, and we put in a new HVAC system. And for the longest time, the noise was incredible, just amazing. You couldn't hear yourself think. So the after the director's report is the approval of the minutes. We do have a quorum. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to read the minutes, and I will take a motion to approve. And you can raise your hand and I will acknowledge. So Diane has made the motion. I need a second, and Susan has seconded the motion. And so if by a show of hands, if folks can signify approval, and I see everybody is raising their hand, so it's unanimous, Anthony. So the minutes have been approved for October. The next item on our agenda, unfortunately, is me again talking. And it is a prelude to some things that we're going to be doing. I wrote a memo, and I hope you've had the chance to read it. I thought it was a pretty good memo that I wrote. But what I'd like to add to it is a couple of things. Workforce is definitely a data-driven system. The federal legislation requires that we do certain data collection and data analysis having to do with the workforce and having to do with our local economy. So the system as a whole is often driven by the data and the data analysis. And I know that Glenn again mentioned, and I think Joyce also, is that you guys are doing some things. And so there's lots of folks out there doing data collection, and especially in this time of COVID. So I wanted to acknowledge that, but I also wanted to say that's good. Everybody has sort of a niche that they're after. I remember Mark Snipes used to do one having to do with commercial real estate availability that he would do for the real estate association here in South County. I know that Eddie Taylor and the folks at United Way were doing things. We're doing data collection having to do with poverty and that sort of thing. I know that the county social services department did something in relationship to that too. And so my point is that yes, there's a lot of data collection going on, and I feel that it's good for us to kind of take stock of where we are and what the impact was on the workforce and on the unemployment rates in particular during this COVID period, as well as to come up with some ideas that would help us move ahead. As it turns out, there's also a regional plan. As I talked earlier about March's meeting, there's a regional plan that has to go forward, and there has to be some data collection on that. There's also a local plan, and there's some data collection on that. So all of those things are starting to happen. We're going to have a lot of data. I know that the REACH folks, the economic development folks that for both of our counties, REACH, are also doing some data collection. So Dawn Belanger, who's the San Luis Obispo workforce director, and myself and the REACH folks are getting together next week to talk about some of the data collection and some of the research that we're having done, so that we're complementing each other and that we're not duplicating the effort. So that's the main point of what I want to add on to the fact that we are doing this COVID-19 impact report. It is something that other counties in California have done. It's going to be about a 30-page report. It will be something that will help us in one spot have sort of a collection of information that just speaks to what happened between March and December of last year. You will be receiving that report from the consultants in March. So that's also going to be on our agenda in March, besides the local plan and the regional plan. So I just want to kind of clarify that again. I suspect that going forward, one of the things that I know the public expects of all systems, but in particular the workforce system, is that we come back and say what we did. And so there's a sort of an evaluation piece that also has to happen. And so having workforce assessments as well as evaluation are going to be part of what we're doing going forward in the future. So with that, I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions before I introduce our guests. Okay, seeing none.
Ray, before you go on, this is Paul. I would just recommend seeing if there are any public comments.
Oh, thank you, Paul. That was for those of you who didn't know that's Paul Lee, our county counsel, and he has been listening in. And so I would ask if there are any public comments, raise your hand or put something in the chat so that I can recognize you to see.
Ray, I've been monitoring. There has not been any requests.
Okay.
Public comment.
Thank you. And Anthony's found his voice again. Okay, fantastic. Okay. With that, I'm going to introduce our presenter today. Petra Gomez, as I mentioned earlier, is with the Santa Barbara Foundation. She will possibly speak a little bit about herself before she does her presentation, but she reached out to me, I want to say it was 6, maybe a little bit longer months ago, and introduced herself as some of the board members will recall, Kathy Seamus, who was with the foundation, as well as before Kathy, Filene Wiggins, who was with the foundation, had served on our board. And so with Kathy's retirement recently, I think that possibly Petra has been picking up some of her workload, but she certainly reached out and connected with me and said that she's interested in the things that we on the workforce board are doing. She's looking to see areas of alignment and compatibility, that sort of thing. And so I invited her to do a presentation about the foundation in relationship to the workforce system and where they are, and possibly COVID and anything else you'd want to talk to us about. And so with that, you can see she's on screen and she's going to unmute herself in a second. Petra Gomez.
Thank you, Ray. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. My name is Petra Gomez, as Ray mentioned, and I am the program manager for the Santa Barbara Foundation. And I oversee the focus areas that are part of our strategic plan. I'm currently based out of my home. I started during the shelter at home, and so I've been working remotely. But once we open up, I will be based out of the North County office, which is in Santa Maria. And as you all know, our Santa Barbara Foundation has been part of the community. It's been our community foundation since 1928. And so this year marks 93 years. And I just wanted to share a little bit before I talk about our focus areas about some of the things that we've been doing. We have been working with different cities to be able to provide small business grants. And also we have partnered with United Way of Santa Barbara, Hutton Parker, in leading a collaborative along with members of the Foundation Roundtable. And so we have been able to get 34 local funders as of October 31st, and we have been able to mobilize $18.9 million. We have distributed $3.9 million as part of our COVID-19 relief. And so I just wanted to share some of those stats before I talk about our focus area. So we're very committed to the Santa Barbara County and working with the nonprofits and businesses and with our community at large. So next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about our focus areas. So our focus areas are part of our Santa Barbara Foundation strategic plan. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some data points in the 3 areas of workforce development, workforce housing, and quality childcare. And then I'm going to go ahead and share some slides that mention our objectives in each area and the projects funded and amounts funded. And so in the area of childcare, our focus is to increase affordable and accessible quality childcare opportunities. So prior to the pandemic, the average cost of enrolling infants in early care and education centers in Santa Barbara County was approximately $1,171 per month. So as you all know, this is a large amount. So our Santa Barbara County already had a significant childcare need prior to the pandemic, and this has continued. So currently the county has a need to fill 19,000 spots for infants and toddlers along with preschool age children. And so the majority of childcare providers have either needed to expand their license to support more children, or they've had to expand their hours of operation. In the area of workforce development, our focus is to build job skills through effective workforce development. Prior to the pandemic, the Public Policy Institute of California indicated that more than 1 in 10 working Californians lived in poverty. And now we've witnessed the impact of COVID-19 on our communities and our economies with the rise in unemployment, especially in the areas that had been growing, and an unequal impact according to age, gender, educational attainment, and race. In the area of workforce housing, our goal is to increase capacity of workforce housing to mitigate housing loss. In the areas of workforce housing, we continue to see the high housing cost as a major burden for our households. And the pandemic has increased the workforce housing gap, which may result in families paying beyond 1/3 of their monthly income due to loss of employment and or income. And so this has elevated our housing insecurity, and it has become a critical part of recovery and rebuilding our local workforce and economy. And so as you can see, these areas of workforce development, workforce housing, and quality childcare were areas of importance and interest to the foundation prior to the pandemic, but we have seen all of these areas and gaps intensified as a result of COVID. So it just makes our work more relevant. And if you can go to the next slide, Anthony. And so in the areas of childcare, the objectives that we have identified is to align 0 to 5 school age childcare providers to support school reopening, maintain open or reopen family childcare providers and centers to pre-COVID-19 levels, and to build on innovation and expansion of the childcare sector in Santa Barbara County to meet the growing needs. So I'm going to share a few examples of how we're doing this on the next slide, please. So in the area of childcare, we have 2 grant cycles. The first grant cycle is the Early Care and Education grant cycle, and the second one is the William and Lottie Daniel Child Care Scholarship Fund. So both of these cycles focus on 2 different areas. The William and Lottie Daniel Child Care Scholarship focuses on increasing child care scholarships throughout the county of Santa Barbara, and the ECE grant cycle focuses on leadership development and professional development, along with family engagement, to go ahead and increase children's outcomes. So this past year, we invested over $400,000 in 9 ECE projects and 63 Daniel Child Care scholarships. It has, I know when we look at the number, we think, well, 63 spots, 9 projects, but the 9 projects serve several families and several children throughout the county. So it's not reflective of all the families that are being impacted, which are a lot. And the 63 Daniel Child Care Scholarships really focus on assisting the families that may not have any other assistance. So these are our working families that may not be eligible for other subsidized childcare. Next slide, please. In the area of workforce development, we're focusing on retaining and increasing the childcare workforce in Santa Barbara County. So as you can see, this objective ties into our childcare objective as well. So we're building off of each area. We're also focusing on increasing qualified labor force in target industries in North County and developing a regional plan for workforce development. Next slide, please. And so in the area of workforce development, we invested a little bit over $242,000. This is an area that we will be expanding on. And so I do encourage those of you who are on this call, if you know of any projects, please feel free to reach out to me and talk to me about those projects. And we invested in 7 projects. So an example of those projects include the Hancock Path to Promise and Community Education program, specifically their ESL program, and then the Boys and Girls Club of Mid-Central Coast, focusing on their Job Ready program. And one of our newest projects is in Lompoc. It's with the Gateway Educational Services to support African-American student service expansion to go ahead and close that academic gap. And another program is also with the Santa Barbara City College and focusing on their ESL students. And so there's several programs throughout the county, both North County and South County. Next slide, please. And in the area of workforce housing, the objectives that we've identified is increasing capacity of agencies, providing housing support to mitigate housing loss exacerbated by COVID-19, replicate successful strategies for affordable and workforce housing across the region, and increasing awareness of policy, funding, and programmatic trends to support affordable and workforce housing. And so a few examples currently include investing on both workforce housing, but because of the pandemic, we have also invested in several other programs that support the unemployed or those who are underemployed or homeless. Next slide, please. And so as you can see in workforce housing this past year, we invested over $312,000 in 17 projects throughout the county. And so as I mentioned, while our focus is on workforce housing and working families, given the pandemic, we did pivot, as I know many, throughout the county have had to do in their areas and sectors. And so we have invested in several other organizations. And so our goal is to continue our work. As I mentioned, this is part of our strategic plan that went into effect in 2018. And so these are just 3 of the focus areas that I oversee, but we do have plenty of other grant cycles that are available through our grant making team, which if you're interested in, you can access through our Santa Barbara Foundation website. And so that concludes my presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions for Petra? Again, you can raise your hand and then I can acknowledge. So while they're thinking about their questions, Petra, I'll throw one out. I noticed that you said, did you say a regional workforce plan that that the foundation's looking to develop? I'd be interested in learning more about that. Because as I mentioned, the state requires that we, and by we, I mean Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties, create a regional workforce plan that we have to submit to the state, quite frankly, in April. And I'll be talking about that later on the agenda, what's required in that. And so I just would like to see the kind of the alignment, just to make sure that we're not certainly that we're not in conflict with each other, but certainly to the point, to the level that we can be in alignment, that would be great too. So,
Absolutely, Ray. We can touch base after offline, but if there's anyone else that is interested in touching base individually about these focus areas or our plans, please feel free to reach out. Ray, you and I can talk about this, and we definitely are looking for partners, and we don't want to be duplicating efforts. We want to go ahead and partner throughout. So yeah, whatever we can do to make sure we're in alignment.
Right. And the other thing I'll mention to you is that, and this was when we were still meeting in person, so it had to be probably around this time last year. We had one of the things that our chair, who's still on mute, can't did bring up was that the interest in childcare issues. And so I see that that's one of yours. So I wanted you to know that that was also something that we recognize was important to workforce, even more so now because of the school situation and what that really means. I noticed that one of your workforce programs was that you were training more childcare providers, I guess it is. I'm hopefully got the right terminology there, but you were doing that, and that's certainly something that we also see some alignment and of purpose, and certainly housing. Although I would toss out to you just maybe as a fuel for thought, because I do this with other folks, certainly in the business community a lot. One of the byproducts of COVID and the shutdowns has been that lots of companies are doing the teleworking thing. And so people are in fact working at home, and that allows folks to either live in a different city than their job. In many cases, I know some folks who work for Microsoft and had been working up in Washington, and now they're down. They live with mom and dad, who's not really appreciative of that, but they're back, they're back here. That's something that that's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out, as well as obviously the commercial real estate issue too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, Ray. I read a recent article about that. I think there's pros and cons to all of it. Pros in being able to work, somewhere where the housing costs may be lower, but then that also can go ahead and decrease the available housing, right, for local residents. And so I know that was already a challenge in our local area, and especially to be able to fill the need in housing, and for our employers who need employees to work for their organizations. And so yeah, you bring up a good point.
To use a non-local example, I mean, I read an article, I guess it was last week, and I'm from the Bay Area previous to being down here, and I was really amazed at the article that the rents are now cheaper in San Francisco than they are in Oakland.
Yeah, I read that.
When I lived in the Bay Area, I lived in the East Bay because it was cheaper than living in San Francisco, where I actually worked. But because of all the telecommuting and people are leaving those high rents in San Francisco, the rent prices have been forced down, which, is good for renters, not good for business, but, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
Ray, if I can just add a comment, and I appreciate you bringing up the childcare, because I wanted to comment on that too, because what I'm also seeing is that certainly the pandemic exacerbated what was already a serious situation with childcare, because many of those childcare facilities closed. I've had an employee who's had a heck of a time being able to work from home and be able to work productively and balancing, because her childcare facility keeps closing and it's gone back and forth. And so I think that's really something that it was underscored, but it's going to continue being a problem ongoing.
Yes.
And that's been an issue raised. I actually have been doing a survey of my staff this week on who here in our corporate office would like to be able to continue working remote when we can go back to the office. And a lot of the reasons people have wanted to do that is that balancing, juggling of the childcare issue. And so I think it really is a large problem here ongoing that we need to resolve. And I agree absolutely the housing. I actually just approved an employee yesterday. She's been temporarily in Idaho just for, family that were ill. And I've approved for her to stay there permanent. Great for her. She can't afford to live here, certainly can't afford to buy a house on the Central Coast, and she can take her same salary and live very well in Idaho. But I think, Glenn, you had mentioned before that we're seeing a lot of people coming into the area and impacting housing who are choosing to live here versus other places, right?
How's that playing out, Glenn?
Well, you got to wonder about how screwed up the world is when Santa Barbara appears to be affordable.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Right. But we are seeing that with some, at least that anecdotally we're hearing from the realtors and the mortgage folks, is that they're seeing a lot of activity with folks relocating in because they have been given permission by their employer to kind of work, from a distance. So that is an interesting piece. Petra, I wondered if you could just take 1 minute also. I know it's not your primary focus area, but one of the other connecting points between priorities for the Workforce Development Board and the Santa Barbara Foundation is around veterans. And I wonder if you could do just a quick update on the Veterans Collaborative piece that you all are working, and maybe where you see some potential opportunities for a collaboration with Ray and his staff.
Thank you, Glenn.
We would also be interested. Yeah.
The foundation is also leading the efforts with other partners in a Veterans Collaborative. And although Kathy Simas is retired, she is currently finishing up that project. And so I can go ahead and touch base with her, and I can follow up with an email. I know we are still working on that, and I know that it does, tie into like my areas as well with workforce development and the Workforce Development Board. So I can touch base with her and then send something to Ray, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I think the real opportunity for the board to be aware of is that this, among a lot of other objectives, one of the real wins that will come out of this is we think that for the first time there'll be kind of a central clearinghouse contact point for veteran serving organizations in the county, and that's not been the case historically. It's been very
Really,
disconnected across all those groups. And this collaborative is really designed to bring them all together and create that kind of clearinghouse moment. So I think it may make things like collaborating on workforce projects much easier in the future.
Thank you for adding that, Glenn.
Because just to tag on to what Glenn said, Petra, I don't know if you're aware, but if you can stay on for the rest of the meeting, you'll hear presentation about our VETS program. We have a special veterans grant to serve veterans here in Santa Barbara County. So that's one of the things I know. Kathy Simas was part of the ad hoc that we'd asked to kind of help advise us on that grant as we're moving forward. So,
Diane, you had a question?
Yes, I just want to bring us back to childcare for just a minute, because there's going to be a lot of legislation happening in Sacramento this year. That's really a strong issue up there. So it would behoove us all to keep track of that, and who's sponsoring bills and who's supporting bills and that kind of thing, and how it relates back to our county. I was on a call with Stronger California just this last week, and there's a lot of activity going on.
Thank you, Diane. And I wanted to add to that as well, that with the childcare objectives, I know we were focusing on the childcare providers. But one of the things that we have been leading as well has been an ECE and district learning community. We had our second meeting this January. Our first one was in December. And so the focus of that was to be able to have a platform for both ECE providers, so early care and education providers, and districts throughout the county to work together to address childcare. And so our goal for that is to be able to work collaboratively to ensure that when schools do reopen, that there's childcare available and that we're thinking ahead. And so we've had a lot of participation throughout the county, and with Susan as well attending. And we have received a lot of great feedback, and that has also assisted us in identifying the new trends that have been outcomes or results of COVID-19.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to come and present to you. It's been a pleasure. I added my email to all panelists and all attendees. And so if you'd like to contact me, please reach out. And as I mentioned, I'm happy to hear about any projects that you feel could fall under any of our focus areas, or just to brainstorm on any other projects. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Petra, again for your presentation. As I mentioned, you're welcome to stay on and hear the rest of our program as we go forward, the rest of our agenda. Again, we'll be back in touch because I know you have that application pending. So with that, again, I'm not sure if, are you?
I'll stay on, but I'll be off camera.
Okay. And Sandra, are you going to move us forward, or should I continue to do it? I think in keeping with what Paul said last time, I just want to make sure that if there's any public comments or questions for Petra, that we acknowledge or give them a chance. Was there anything added into the chat, Anthony? You can just do the finger thing up or down.
No, there's no request.
Okay. So if there's
I'm kind of keeping an eye on the chat too, Anthony. I don't see anything there.
Okay. So if there's any,
we're ready to move forward to the program updates.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Go for it. Program updates. I'm going to introduce Luis Servin, who's going to introduce our program operators, who we all know. Actually, we know our program operators, but he'll just introduce the item and say how it's going to go.
Thanks, Ray. Good morning, everybody. So I asked our operators to present a little snapshot of our programs and special projects, especially our enrollment numbers and how that's going. So we're going to do that, as well as activity report for our Santa Maria HACC. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Give me a second. Okay, and let me know if you're able to see it. So we're going to have our three operators talk a little bit about, again, the projects, special projects and programs. We have Eric Walker from Equis, we have Eddie Taylor from United Way, and we have Laura Kisner from Goodwill. But we're going to start with the AJCC activity report, and I'm going to have Eric talk a little bit about some of the activities at the Santa Maria, our comprehensive Santa Maria AJCC. Eric, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, go ahead, Eric.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Eric Walker. I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about what's happening since we opened the AJCC in Santa Maria. So we opened the center, was reopened to the public starting on November 16th. The goal of opening the center was to serve our community as a whole, especially our farming community, who typically during the winter months are not working because work is not available because of the rainy season. Unfortunately, we're not getting any rain right now, but typically this time of the year, they're not working. So, and being able to serve that population, want to make sure we wanted to be able to do that. The center here in Santa Maria was reconfigured to meet all COVID protocols, safety measures for staff and for the individuals coming into the center. When we opened the center, I was the Equis staff with the EDD staff working with those individuals coming into tip more times than not, and then we'll show that on the next slide. That coming in to apply for unemployment, starting about mid-December, with the stay-at-home order by the state, the EDD staff was no longer available to work out front with the individuals coming through the door. So EQUA staff continued to work with those individuals. And you can see by the chart there, starting in November, mid-November, we had a little over 300 individuals that came through the door. Last month, we had almost 950, we had 941. And as of the 13th of this month, we've had 555 people walk through the door for some type of service that they needed. Luis, can you go to the,
Yes.
okay, thanks. As you can see, based off of the individuals coming through the door, you can see the reasons for their visit in December. Paid family leave was 124 individuals came through the door. Unemployment insurance, 524. State disability, 233. Overall, 881 individuals, and then 60 of those individuals came through were for WIOA or some type of other service. And then the pie chart you have there kind of gives a breakdown of the percentage of each service that they were coming through the door for. As you can see, a little bit more than half of those individuals were for unemployment. So a lot of individuals coming in seeking to apply for unemployment via either use a computer in the resource room, fill out the paper application, were the two main majority cases during this time. The phones weren't available for individuals to apply for unemployment, so it was either a paper application or applying over the computer. So, which leads me into the 6% there of the individuals coming in for WIOA services, walking through the door for WIOA type services. Luis, can you go to the next one? Oh, anybody have any questions? I'm sorry, I apologize. Does anybody have any questions?
And as we wait for questions, I just want to acknowledge that also as part of our plan to serve the ag community, we work very closely with Allen Hancock College, with Tom and the Career Center. We actually were able to open up a satellite location at Allen Hancock. When we fully reopened our doors, we didn't know how many clients, how many job seekers, layoff workers we're going to encounter. So we are really appreciative of Tom and his team and Allen Hancock that we're able to accommodate that satellite location for us to be able to serve customers, to serve clients out of their office. Right now, because of the stay-at-home order, they are still providing serving clients virtually. Once the stay-at-home order is lifted, we are looking to kind of go back depending on the need. And the number of clients are still coming in and trying to explore having that face-to-face type of assistance at Allen Hancock, I think is very valuable. And it really helps us as we move forward with assisting these clients. So I just wanted to point that out and thank Tom for his contribution.
Yeah.
And Louis, I'm sorry, we have in the chat just a question that I'll read from Sarah. Are individuals coming initially for UI services referred to WIOA services and other employment-related services? Are they enrolled into Title I services?
For those individuals, depending on those individuals will get interviewed when they come in to see if it's something they'd be interested in, because we also have the other programs available, the other operators that are involved that you'll hear from. So we also talk to them about those other possible services as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before I go to our chart and report?
Luis, we also, speaking of the satellite offices, we forgot to mention we were going to have the Lompoc satellite office as well. But because of COVID at the Lompoc Ed, but unfortunately we weren't able to open that site because of the stay-at-home order as well.
Correct. Okay, so I'll go to the report. As you can see, there's a lot of numbers, but we're gonna go for one program at a time, and then we're gonna have our operators report out. So we're gonna start with Eric. Eric, you want to take it away for the WIOA adult programs?
Yes, no problem. as you can see there, that where we are, our enrollment goal of 182, we're actually at 82 individuals. So we're at basically 45% of, we're just short of where we need to be currently. Should be at 50%, so we're a little below that right now. But we also are, on our caseload, we have, in addition to those 82, we have 140 individuals being served in Santa Maria, and an additional 106 clients being served in Santa Barbara, on top of those 82 that were enrolled. Along with the special COVID grant, services grant, that's money to help individuals with rent, utilities, services that they may qualify for. We've served 105 people through that grant, provided some type of financial service for them through that grant. So we're at 63% of the 168 that we're supposed to serve there. So moving along with that grant. And then with the layoff assistance grant, so individuals that were laid off because of COVID, businesses, those types of things. The goal is to serve 80 individuals. By the end of December of this past year, we were supposed to be at 20, so we were at 19. So we were just short of the 25% where we need to be. So
one of the things.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay, no problem, no problem. I was just going to just comment on a couple other things. So as far as these numbers, some of the issues, I wanted to touch base on some of the challenges, the successes, and some of the strategies moving forward. So one of the challenges we've had is making sure that we serve all the individuals that come to the door in Santa Maria, being just with our staff. So we've worked on just different things to address the needs of the individuals that come to the door since there's no EDD services. So we've been brainstorming different strategies on how to serve those individuals, how to get them what they need as far as unemployment. So we've worked with Luis and worked with other individuals just to strategize on how to do that effectively. One of the successes that we've had recently was in November, we were able to work with a training provider that provides security training. And we were able to successfully have 9 individuals go through that training, that course. And as of today, 8 of those individuals have been hired by different training security companies. Google has hired a few of them. We've had a couple of individuals hired down at Cottage Hospital, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Samsung. I'm sorry, Samsung. So we've had some individuals get hired after that training. So we still have one left that we need to make sure that gets hired. So we've been successful there. That's been a big success. And one of the strategies we have moving forward is we'll be working with Luis on a Lompoc initiative, working with, speaking of Lompoc adult ed, and employers in Lompoc to create trainings and jobs for individuals in the Lompoc area. So branching out, we've been in contact with Lompoc Ed, and they have some programs and some employers that they've been working with. And we think through the WIOA program, we can really foster that and really grow that to make it even more of a viable program for individuals living in Lompoc.
And just to add to what Eric was mentioning, so what we're trying to do with Lompoc Adult Education Career Center, Lompoc Adult School and Career Center, pardon me, in Mid County, it's a pilot program that we're looking into, and what it is, it's putting people back to work. Those that have been laid off because of COVID, they have really good, strong vocational trainings established through Lompoc Adult Ed. And they have partners, employers identified. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring in our workforce programs to assist in enrolling those layoff workers into our workforce programs. And the Lompoc Adult Ed is gonna provide the occupational vocational training, and they have employers already identified willing to interview participants. We're willing to do that, and then we're willing to, that has a pilot and then expanded countywide, working with our other education providers. The main goal, again, is to put people back to work, folks that might have been getting laid off because of COVID that are looking for maybe a different type of career. Right now, the programs that Lompoc Adult Ed has identified, it's the dental program, a medical assistant program, I believe, and a CompTIA A+ certification program, if I'm not mistaken. So there's three type of programs that we're still exploring and looking at with Lompoc Adult Ed. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. Any questions for Eric before we move on to Eddie Taylor and United Way?
Yeah.
Okay, Eddie, are you here?
Yes, I am, Luis.
All right, the floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. Oh, I'm sorry, it's still morning. Good morning, everybody. It's been interesting listening to some of the comments you all have had to share during your meeting. I'll briefly go over those numbers. Obviously, you can see them and interpret them. They're not big numbers. The goal of the program is to recruit 33 people into a temporary jobs component and place those with partners throughout the county. And 22 of those 33 that go to work in the temporary jobs program will be chosen to go into the workforce development component of the program. At the end of the year, we had recruited 9 of the temporary jobs participants, and 2 had been placed in the workforce development component. The challenges that we face are the same challenges that you all have been talking about for the last couple of hours. I'm sure we talk about them every day. Identifying and recruiting workforce development partners during the COVID-19 regional stay-at-home order is a challenge. It's also a challenge that I think maybe I haven't heard, but the continued federal unemployment compensation, while it is a good thing, it makes it difficult for us to recruit temporary workers at $17 an hour for 17 hours a week. I had to change a note here because I said, we expect that will improve after March. That's probably not the case anymore. The successes of the program, though, when we went into this, we were determined that 50% of our placements would be people who had experienced homelessness or were even currently homeless. At the end of 2020, 4 of the temporary jobs participants were either currently homeless or had recently been housed through our coordinated entry system. All of those folks are working with food banks. And one of the participants in the workforce development program is actually currently homeless. Successes have also included the partnership with the food bank. It's been extraordinary. We've had some challenges in the workplace, but they have been an extraordinary partner to work with. The workforce, working relationship with Luis and his team has been a huge benefit for us as we expand this opportunity for folks. And also some outbound referrals that go to the other providers that we've been able to work with. Our strategy going forward, it's nothing has really changed in the last couple of weeks, and I don't see anything really changing dramatically in the next couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months. But we do feel strongly that recruitment will pick up in the next few weeks, next 8-week period, with the access of the vaccine, the possible reopening of schools. And I had said the end of the federal unemployment compensation program in March. However, that's now changed dramatically. We're working with 2 of our 4 target cities for cleanup programs to address specific needs on public property. And one of those, we've signed a contract with the city of Santa Barbara. We will be placing currently homeless, people experiencing homelessness currently to work doing cleanup programs on city properties and public land through the United Way Home for Good program. And also going forward, stepping up our efforts now to identify and build relationships with both the education partners and the prospective workplace partners. To date, the food bank had asked us for 10 participants in North County. We have been able to fill 7 of those positions. They asked for 5 in South County, and 2 of those positions have been filled. And that's what I have for you today, guys.
Any questions for Heidi? All right, we're gonna move on, and I have Laura is gonna present about the Goodwill programs, which are most of the, actually all of the other programs listed here. So Laura, are you here?
Yes. Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Laura.
Hi. Good meeting. I listened to the whole thing. It's very interesting. So to start out with the WIOA Youth Program, as you can see, we're at above 50%. We're at 53% of enrollments. So we're on target. And, you know, I know one of the things that we did is we really prepared by being able to get the youth with some devices and surfaces so that we could communicate and provide training to them and employment prep via Zoom. And we just have we developed a lot of workshops to be able to continue to work with them, because the youth, it's been quite a interesting year having to provide services virtually, where during the summer or even like, you know, not just the summer, but after 3 every day, our youth centers would be full of kids that come in, they bring their friends, they have snacks, they wait for their meetings, they wait for their trainings. So I am actually pleasantly surprised that we're still able to keep them engaged. So in addition to, you know, being where we need to be with our enrollments, we are also continuing to place the youth in work experience. And right now we have completed at least 43 work experiences this year, which also is interesting because a lot of our work sites are places that the kids can no longer be at. For example, like Marion Hospital, they can't be in a medical facility. But we're still able to find safe places for the kids to put in their WEX hours. Ray stole my thunder by announcing that, of course, that Teresa was the recipient of the scholarship. Teresa went through her work experience as a receptionist in my Santa Maria office. Since then, we've hired her, and she is our admin, and she actually works on the youth program. So it's kind of come full circle. She's able to help us mentor the youth that come in. We're very happy for her. We're very happy for Ray. I know he's been wanting this. I think, you know, we're combating the challenges as best we can with the youth program. I think we're being successful primarily because of our ability to kind of get on the virtual wagon with the kids as soon as possible. Strategies to continue to find programs, work experience sites for the youth include, we're doing employer outreach by Zoom. We're sending out meetings, we're sending out invites to employers, and it's not only going to be for the youth program, but for our other programs, so that they know the benefits of bringing on a youth, that we could provide the work experience, that we can pay for the work experience. And then it kind of goes along, piggybacks onto some of the other programs that I'll be talking about. So that's one of the new strategies. And we started doing that in Ventura County, and we get a lot of employers. We do just like we have with orientation with youth or other programs, we'll have a designated time for employers to call in to jump on and hear about what we're doing. So I think that's going to help us out. So the STEPS program. So what STEPS is, as all of you know, it's youth get 40 hours of employment preparation where they learn how to interview and go through a lot of workshops. Again, everything done by Zoom. And then they do receive a stipend when they finish that time. And then they're placed into a 100-hour work experience. Keep in mind that the difference between these youth and some of the WIOA youth is the STEPS youth would eventually be eligible to become Department of Rehab clients, in that they have a documented disability. So these are harder, these individuals have a few more barriers. Nonetheless, we have been able to place 47 out of the 100 youth. I was on a call not too long ago with the Department of Rehab, and I know a few, I don't know, Susan, I think, was on that call. And they told us that our Santa Barbara program was the highest placing program in the state. Am I correct? something like that.
I think we were one of them, and also our collaboration, it was one of the strongest. And although they made us change some of our procedures
Okay.
right after that, but still, I think we're doing awesome. You're doing
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, and you know, and we're trying. And with that one, you know, I have some good people, and we're just, you know, we do rely on getting the referrals from the Department of Rehab, so we can only work with whoever we get. But most of the people that we get, we are able to place. So we like that program. It's pretty successful. The Veterans Program. Now
Well,
that,
I was going to say, I think that's the challenge this year, because last year you also had walk-ins, and so this year I think you have less of that. So yeah.
and again, yeah, that's the challenge that all of our programs are having, is that we don't have that walk-in traffic, or, you know, and I know Eric and his folks are trying hard to send folks over, but if we're not getting the folks, it's hard to kind of co-refer to each other. So we're doing the best that we can with that. Okay, the next one, our Veterans Program. And that one did get off to a little bit of a late start. I'm confident that we will meet the goals. I have had other veteran programs in the past. Although we've only enrolled 3 folks so far, we have 4 pending. And my 2 program managers in Santa Barbara County are both veterans. And, you know, we're just working on partnering with Vandenberg, with any, you know, I'll be happy to connect with anybody who is working on a collaborative. We had a military collaborative a few years back where we met, I think it was monthly, but that stopped a few years ago. And I would love to have, yeah, that's something that I saw that was missing, any kind of military collaboration or veteran collaboration.
Yeah.
So we're just getting started with that one, and it's going well. I anticipate we will, you know, be on track and have all the folks that we need. We had a previous veteran program, and we're able to reach out to some of those folks, and if they're not working, they certainly might be eligible for this program. Okay, and then AB 1111. Now that one is, it's actually, all our job is for this one is to provide the tracking. So we have no control over the enrollments. This is the transitional mental health program where they get folks, and they also do employment prep, and they do job placement with them, and they go in cohorts, but they had to stop because of COVID. So we've only had 1 cohort. So we will support them as best we can, but I don't know when they're going to start up again. But the first cohort did go through, and that was only 15. We're actually supporting Santa Maria and San Luis Obispo. So
let me jump in on that one, Laura, and just kind of refresh for the board mind. The AB 1111 program is a state-funded program. It was a competitive process, and we in Santa Barbara County had been funding transition mental health with a small grant, and then we encouraged them to apply for the state grant. And we are participating with them through Laura's good graces and support of her staff as part of the program. But it's not a WDB funded program. It is a state funded program, but it is a program that's doing good for the community. And that's why Laura mentioned that it is touching base in San Luis Obispo County also. This group, Transition Mental Health, was funded to operate in both counties. So I don't know whether, Susan, you're aware of them because of the work that they do or not, but.
Right. No, we are, and we have, we also have a mental health contract with the county of San Luis Obispo, and they're the case service provider on that. And then we have, I think they're also on our contract for mental health in Santa Barbara. So I'm curious about this one. Are you guys doing work experience? Because we had hoped to get work experience in our contract. And I think that will happen someday, but yeah.
The short answer is Transition Mental Health didn't have experience doing WIA type of program and record keeping, et cetera, et cetera. And so we've asked Goodwill to provide that for their program. And so that's primarily what Goodwill is doing. Let me know, Laura, speak up if you're doing anything more than what I just said. Please correct.
No, I mean, no, we went and visited the site where they're providing the training. The answer is yes, they are doing work experience. I don't know if they're actually calling it work experience, but they do have to do work. It's an actual working farm. It's called Growing Grounds, the one that I went to, Santa Maria.
Yeah.
And in order to get the employment preparation workshops, the participants have to work. Because they're mental health clients, some of them cannot perform any activity for, they have to kind of wean in. So they might only work 1 hour a day, but they do have to be they do have to work in order to obtain the other services. So I guess the short answer is yes, they do.
So again, Laura and Goodwill are supporting the program based on our collaboration with Transition Mental Health. So.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's very wise to have somebody helping with the bookkeeping. That's very, very, that was a good decision.
Yeah, it's actually
the management part.
Yeah,
and
it's
the reporting.
Yeah. So and it was good. It's training them how they have to check people in. They have to do timesheet. It's a lot of stuff. Okay, right. I did forget to mention when I was reporting out on the veteran program that we did, every year we have a stand down, and this last year, of course, was different. So we had help from a lot of folks on the board there, and we did 3 drive-through stand down programs and I counted 162 veterans in Santa Barbara County, most of which came from Santa Maria and Lompoc. Santa Barbara, for some reason, we just didn't we had maybe 10, and that's not a high number. So we'll work on that for next year. But we had a lot of community support, and we handed out goodie bags with resources and essential items. And it was a good event. We were on TV. We did it in Ventura as well. And so, but it was a good event. And I think, I hope we don't have to do it next year in a park. I hope we can get back to how we used to do it. But that was awesome.
To tag on to that, we did fold that in with the veteran stand down that Steve Lavanino does here in Santa Barbara County. He, as you mentioned, he was instrumental in supporting and doing the program up in Santa Maria. I want to give credit to EDD for allowing us to use the site here in Santa Barbara. As Laura did mention, now we didn't get the turnout that we wanted. I went by that day myself, and there was few drive-throughs. It isn't on the main drag, so to speak, the office itself. So maybe that was part of it. So people didn't just just wandering by, come by and see it. So you have to almost be looking for it. So maybe that was a lesson for Santa Barbara itself, right. The city of Santa Barbara. But I really appreciate that effort. That was totally a team effort. A lot of people contributing to that, and I'd like to see that team effort continue, and however way we need to fine tune it for Santa Barbara City.
Absolutely. Okay, and then the last program that I'm working on for you folks is Prison to Employment. That one just started, and although we only have actually 3 people enrolled in the system, we have 45 people in the pipeline. We're getting referrals like crazy. We had to do a lot of outreach because it is a new program, and so we partnered with the probation. Well, Ray partnered with the probation department, and they contracted with us to provide the services. And so we're providing a lot of services to individuals who have been involved in the justice system. they get work experience, supportive services, there's just a lot that we can do. And so we've spent the last few months doing a lot of the outreach. It's starting to pay off because, like I said, I just counted over 50 referrals. And so we are now going to start getting the folks through, getting them into work experience. We have actually 20 people just from Santa Barbara, the city of Santa Barbara alone, and I just got most of them yesterday. So that is, a collaboration in collaboration with the Santa Barbara probation. They're letting us see folks or utilize some of their sites in their site in Santa Barbara. We're doing a lot of stuff. We go to their day reporting centers to do the orientations, and if need be, we'll have clients come in a safe manner, and that is the challenge. But I really, even though this program just started, I feel really good about it. I think we're going to be able to get a lot of participants involved. There is a big push to work with folks that are what we call housing insecure. And we actually do have quite a few individuals that meet that category. And so we'll be working with those folks. They are primarily in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, let me add a little bit to that. This is a program that's sort of ancillary to, if you run your memory banks back a few years, excuse me, I believe it was Governor Brown was still in office at the time. And what he did was he's moving folks out of state prisons and into county jails. And so, and that's why we have the CCP locally, the Community Correctional Partnership, that talks about reintegrating people back into the community. So as part of that, they also created this prison to employment program that took money away from the California Corrections Department and gave it to the workforce system to help, again, folks make that transition from incarceration and back into the community. What we thought was, from a staff level, what we thought would work best, especially again, since we have a community correctional partnership that's led by the probation department, is to align ourselves with that group and that partnership. And so that's why probation wound up being our operator for this program, meaning the workforce board's operator is the probation department, and probation has contracted with Goodwill, obviously, because probation already has a relationship with Goodwill. And also probation has some wraparound services that they're doing for the participants, because again, this is a very good idea program. The numbers are way too small. The amount of money is way too little. I wonder where this is going to go after the program ends in June of 2022. The idea should have been that this is always going to be a set aside and that this becomes sort of an ongoing program, but I haven't seen that yet. But to support what Laura's saying, the demand is really great. The ideal behind it is to give workforce opportunities to people who, if they don't have workforce opportunities, may fall back into some unpleasant habits. And we don't want to see that. So I just wanted to kind of do a little wraparound. That's a very important program. I know we're still fine tuning a little bit of it. It got a very slow start because of state contracting, and not anything that was a problem on our side, but state contracting. And we're hoping that this is going to be a great success.
Yeah.
Ray and Laura, if we can help with this, say it's part of the funding and assist, let us know. We're actually doing something similar with Ventura, and we're involved with a group called GEO.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually GEO. And career expansions, and we've just got started like in the last
Right.
month or 6
I-
weeks.
yeah.
So so let us know if you, we would be very willing. We had thought about doing something with Santa Barbara, but we thought we'd start in Ventura and see how that goes.
Yeah, I have the prison to employment contract in Ventura, and that started a year ago. So that one we've had for a while.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I'd love to follow up on that, Susan. So Louise,
Okay.
put that in the back of your mind, and Laura, put that in the back of your mind, and we'll
Awesome.
see what we can do.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
agree. The work experience, anything with work experience for folks is really a good idea. It puts work history on their resume, and then once the prison to employment grant or they go through the program, I do have another contract with probation where I can do subsidized employment. So we will continue to work with these folks. So like I said, it's just getting started, but it's going to be very successful. And then the last thing, although I'm not the operator for Santa Barbara County or in partnership for the SB1 High Roads Construction Project, I am the case manager and Cal Jobs entity for Ventura County. And we're still basically, we've been in the planning stages for what seems like forever, but this is a really good idea. Yes, right, Ray's on those calls.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and what we're doing is we're aligning ourselves with the trade industries, with the Trade Council, to provide apprenticeship programs to individuals. These are going to be good paying jobs. These are jobs in construction. So basically what happens is that the folks that are recruited will do classroom training, and then they're put on they kind of get fast tracked to the, and in partnership with the trade industries to go into apprenticeship programs. And so as Goodwill, what we are doing is we're helping by providing them tools. A lot of times we get like folks that are going to go into let's say they're an electrician, and in order to start, they need certain tools, but the employer doesn't provide them. We will, we have like some suppliers that we have contracts with to get a nonprofit rate, and we buy their toolkit, we buy their tool belt, we do all kinds of stuff like that. But this is something that we're just getting started on. It is a collaboration between the tri-counties. And every county has certain numbers to meet. I think Santa Barbara's 50 and Ventura, we're at 100 that we need to serve. And but we're all in this together, and we're all working on what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be doing it. But we have not started in Ventura, nor I don't think you guys have started in Santa Barbara.
I'd like to make a comment through the chair. So I'm the business manager for the IBW in Santa Barbara County. So the building trades is Tri-County Building Trades. And for those that don't know, our executive secretary died suddenly during the summer.
Yes.
And so we had to recruit a new replacement as executive secretary with all these. We've got project labor agreements going in every county. And so the new person's been recruited and hired, but coming up to speed with what Tony Skinner had, and he knew, and the promises made. And I think we picked an overseer now for our MC3 program, and Corey Black, I think, is going to oversee it for the 3 counties for us, I understand. But it's been a lot of work by the affiliates for me, a lot of work for me and the other one, because we didn't have anybody in place to do this. And so the delay in it, and also the COVID-19, as you can understand. So yeah, there's been a lot of delays, but when you just have someone that knows anything, and there were like verbal agreements made, I don't know, Ray, you and I, we had meetings and we had
Yeah. But Joshua is kind of filling the gap now. Joshua.
Yeah.
Molden, I guess is the way his last name's pronounced.
Yeah, and there were some agreements made that Joshua didn't know about and different things that
That's true.
You and I had in meetings, and so it's been kind of a little rough patch. And Joshua's got a lot on his plate trying to get this done. So
Yeah.
I just want to explain why all these delays and things, and and like you were saying too about the training and prepping for them. For instance, like electrician, they have to have a certain level of math or they won't pass the course.
Mm-hmm.
They'll get in there and they'll struggle, and it'll be like, oh my gosh, the poor person, it's disappointing to see them struggle so much because of the electrician's part requires a high level math to understand and get through the course. So, but I think it's going to be good when it gets up and running. But I just thought I would jump in and say, hey, yeah, it's not it's been trying to get this thing done and synced and do. And I think Josh is working like 15, 16-hour days just to kind of catch up. And his understanding of how it all works, he doesn't fully understand it yet.
It maybe just makes you feel a little bit better, Chuck. The real delays on this was between the state and Ventura County. It wasn't the unions.
Okay, well, we're trying, we're trying
Yeah.
to, and I'm trying to support Josh. I spent a lot of time with him trying to get him up to speed, and so are the others. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Ray, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And I'll go back to Luis to see if you had any closing remarks before we go on to the next item, Luis.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that, the diversity of guests of the programs that we have, we're trying to target a lot of different, population, different type of populations. We have continued to look at other grants. We actually just submitted an application this week for an English language learner grant for adult English language learners. So we're gonna hopefully hear about that one in a couple of months. But we have continued. A lot of these programs, a lot of these projects started either July or late last year. So we are right now in the midst of implementation. And again, we will continue to look for another grants, additional grants that could support our population here in Santa Barbara County. Just wanted to close with that.
Hey, thank you. And thanks to all the program operators. Again, we appreciate what you folks are doing, and especially under this very difficult time of the COVID pandemic, and people having additional issues thrust upon them, such as childcare and shut-ins and those sort of things. So you guys have been doing a tremendous job. We really feel pleased that you guys are doing as well as you are. So with that, I can go to Sandra. I'll go to the last two items, or the last item basically, which is the regional and the local plans. And this is sort of a heads up thing. And so Anthony, if you'll put the regional plan slide up. On the screen. So, oops, what happened? Oh. next one. There you go. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, in March, we are going to be bringing to the full board the regional plan, and that's a regional plan for SLO County and Santa Barbara County. Remember, we have our new regional planning unit. And so, as I also mentioned earlier with Petra, is that they're doing their local plan by Joyce. They're doing their local or their regional plan, and so it'd be interesting to see where the alignments can be. But what I wanted to do today was just to kind of outline what's going to be happening with that plan, what's encompassed in it, and a little bit of the timing. So again, for the regional plan, it's due to the state in April of this year. And the purpose of that plan is to set regional goals that is consistent with the state's plan. The state has a plan that they submit to the federal government. And so the process in California, which is very difficult because there are 15 regions in California. So all of those 15 regions have to come back and be in alignment with that one state plan. Having some of the same shared goals and initiatives, that sort of thing. But also to establish regional initiatives that we're looking at. So that's the purpose of the plan. And the plan has certain elements that, as I mentioned also earlier, that there is a labor market analysis. What does the workforce look like? What does the job picture look like? What industries do we have in common? Obviously between Santa Barbara and SLO County, we have an ag industry in common, I don't know if the winery industry is a subset of the ag industry or not, but we obviously have that in common too. We also have some tourism in common. So I need those sort of things. Demand-driven goals to meet the workforce of our industry, designated industry sectors. San Luis and Santa Barbara have some of the same industry designated industry sectors. Remember, that's something that local boards do, and we've done that. They've actually called some of their industry sectors by different names. So there's a fairly good alignment on that. So that shouldn't be too much of a problem. But this is the next one is a new one, and this is basically come out of the needs over the past year and a half for social equity, upward mobility, Black Lives Matters issues. And so one of the things that the state added into their plan is something that they're called enabling upward mobility. And so we have to address that in our plan. And then we also have to address how we would align some, not all, but some of our regional service strategies. If we've got industries or companies or whatever that run between the two counties, we need to address that. So that's kind of what the elements will be in the plan that you're going to see in March. What I also want to point out is that the plan must be made available for public comment or review. And the way that we're going to be doing that this year, again, out of the respect for the pandemic, is that we're going to be doing Zoom meetings. In the past, what we've done is that we've had the one stop open late at night, and we've posted it, and we've had people come to make comments on the plan. We've gone over the broad strokes of the plan and asked people if they had comments. Actually, I think that doing it by Zoom will probably make it more accessible to people than our public meetings have been in the past, but it remains to be seen. But at any rate, it has to be available for public comment for 30 days before it's submitted to the state, which again is in April. Excuse me. And so we're looking at making it available in February, approximately 30 days before our March meeting, so that we will have some public comments in by our March meeting, and that can be reported out. But I did want to point out that there is a public comment period there. As far as the approvals go before we submit to the state, it will be approved, as I've said several times, and it's called the draft plan at that point to the state. And it will be approved by your board in March, and then we'll submit it to the state in that April date. And then the state may have some things that they want fine-tuned with it, which we'll do. Any fine-tunings would be approved by the executive committee because of our meeting schedule, because our next meeting is not going to be until July. And then we'll be submitting to the county board of supervisors probably in May, so that we can get all of the final approvals from the state in June of 2021. So that's the regional plan. And again, regional plan is 2 counties, Santa Barbara and SLO. So if you can put up the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the local plan, then I'll see if you guys have any questions. Local plan follows a lot of the same things that I've already talked about. Due dates the same. The purpose is somewhat different. It sets goals and objectives for the local area, and that's Santa Barbara County only. So this local plan's not talking about SLO County at all. And again, we have to have an analysis that speaks to our workforce and our industry sectors here in Santa Barbara County only, not Santa Barbara and SLO. So that's where the difference is there. The rest of the stuff is virtually the same. the 30-day public comment period. Obviously what we're going to try to do is to have both the local plan and the regional plan serve its 30-day comment period at the same time. We'll try to do the Zoom meeting, possibly one for 1 hour, and then the next hour is the other plan. So we're trying to do them both together so that we're not taking up 2 days of people's times. But again, that has to happen. And then it comes to your board in March. State makes any comments, reviews, comes back to us. We fine tune that with the executive committee and then to the board of supervisors that has to sign up on it. And again, the same timeline. The last thing I'd mention is that the local plan is being done in-house by Linda Hillman, has got the lead responsibility for that. She'll have assistance by other folks, and BW Research, who does most of our labor market and analysis, will be providing the labor market aspects of it all. And on the regional plan, the regional dollars that we had with the former region is supporting BW Research, and they did a competitive process for that. They will actually be creating the regional plan for Santa Barbara and SLO. So our staff will not be writing the plan and compiling that stuff for the regional plan, but we will be doing it for the local plan. So with that, I'll stop. Again, the purpose of this was just to kind of let you know what's coming and what's involved in it, what the elements are. And one of the things that you probably have detected from my comments already is that I take very seriously this time around is the public comment period. So I really want that to be a good experience, be really readily available to the public to be able to tune in on a Zoom meeting like this and actually give us their feedback. And we'll walk them through a presentation of both plans, and then they can comment on those elements. So I'll stop again and see if comments, thoughts. Nope, I don't see any. Okay. So again, if you think of anything or you have any questions about it, or you want us to reach out in particular to an organization that you may know of, or some people that you may know of who you would want to make sure are invited to the Zoom public comment meeting, just send me an email with that, and I will make sure that they get included, because I want the public comment period and the public Zoom meeting to be as widespread as possible. Okay. This is our opportunity to kind of say what we want to do. I know that we've done planning meetings in the past, but this is also a formal document that we're going to be held to. So.
Okay, thanks, Ray. It doesn't appear anybody have any questions? Additional comments? Okay. And I think that's the last of our agenda items. Is there anything additional, Ray?
No. I guess what I will say is that we do have a new regional advisor also from Sacramento, who her name is Vivian, and I'm having a meeting with her next week. Dawn Belanger and I are jointly meeting with her via Zoom, and so she'll probably be attending some of our meetings going forward. I'll introduce her.
Ray, Vivian looks like she's one of the attendees. Do you want to introduce her?
Oh, are you on, Vivian?
Let me enable her here.
If she's, enable her. If she would like to say a few words and introduce herself, please do. Vivian Estrada. So you can unmute yourself, Vivian, or if not, then we're going to introduce you in March. So do it now or do it later. I mean, okay, it looks like she's going to do it later. So thanks for catching that for us, Anthony. So with that, I have nothing else. Again, thank you all for attending the meeting. I think this was, oh, she called in. So, okay. So I hope that this meeting was very informative. I know that we have a lot of challenges ahead with trying to reboot our economy, getting people back to work. I know that there's a huge need to do alignment with some of the other folks who are out there doing good work also. I would also say to remember that funding on the national level, if it's not directly from Department of Labor, DOL, it will come to the county of Santa Barbara itself. And then the county of Santa Barbara has the option on how they're going to do things, such as the contact tracing, if they're going to use the workforce board for something like training people to do vaccinations or other types of activities. So there may be an opportunity, I may reach out to some of you to contact or support us as we go forward to the County Board of Supervisors or to the County Executive Office, and asking them to work with the workforce board and our workforce system. I think that often it's a challenge for people to understand some of the possibilities that we can bring to the table. That's kind of my job, is to reach out and to make sure that they know it, but I do need support. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ray. And Ray, I think Vivian called in. I see her number up there. Vivian, are you able to speak now?
Hi, this is Vivian. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm Vivian Estrada. I'm the new regional advisor. And yeah, I just wanted to introduce myself. I've been with EDD since 2009. I've worked in the Oxnard, AJCC, Mark Sanders in Sacramento, and in San Francisco. So 3 different AJCCs. And I've currently been at central office with EDD for the last 4 years. So I'm really excited to attend these meetings, and I love hearing about all the different projects and all the enrollments that are still going on during COVID. So yeah, from this point forward, I will be the regional advisor, and I'll go ahead and leave my email too right now in the chat box if anyone wants to, follow up. But Happy New Year, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, we're excited to have you too. I always like the idea. Eileen Waffling, who was your predecessor, was always very supportive of our programs, and she always made time to check in with us and see how we were doing. And so we're really pleased that you plan on following in her footsteps.
Okay.
Yep, very excited.
Okay.
Thanks, Vivian. So I think with that, that's our last agenda item. So we're adjourned. Anthony, I don't have my thing up for the next date of our next scheduled meeting. Maybe you have that.
It's March something. What is it? Well, I can find it real fast.
It's March 26th.
Okay.
March 26th. Yes.
Yeah, and we should all have a calendar item for that. So thank you everyone for participating today. Let's hope that by March 26th, we've all had a vaccine by that point, and maybe are starting to get out of our houses a little bit. And yeah. I think it's a little optimistic for a return to normal. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Hey, Diane. Okay.
Guess that's it. Everybody's gone.
Okay.
All right.
Take
Bye, Steve.
care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.